So we here at Lon'qudor have a surprisingly large Discord server compared to what a small channel we are. It's constantly active, it's filled to the brim with inside jokes, and for the longest time people have been asking me to essentially make a video ranking their custom TF2 weapons. I was reluctant to, as most of them were terrible, but after a good long while we finally got some good ones and enough for me to essentially make a video on them. So here's how this is going to work. I've been given several different custom weapons using this generator here, which I've linked down below in the description in case you want to try and make your own, and I'm essentially going to be ranking them. All of these weapon concepts have come from viewers on my Discord server, apart from one which was given by me. This here is the tier list in which I'll be ranking these weapon designs. Too strong means essentially it's too strong and should never be added to the game in its current state. A bit too good means it's very good, but just maybe could do with some nerfing. Good means it's good, end of. Balanced means it's perfect and should be added to the game as is. A little bit weak essentially means it could do with some tweaking, maybe a bit to buffs. A bit too weak means it needs some serious buffs, and need buffs essentially means it should not be added. Now our last category here down at the bottom means the weapon is just completely irredeemable in its current state and needs a complete and utter rework. These tier lists are pretty easy to grasp, and essentially what you're shooting for is the middle one or the two surrounding it, the balanced, the good, or the weak. Alright, well that's enough with the intro. I'm sorry, I promise I'm trying to make these shorter, but I often have a lot to talk about, and let's just get started. The first one on our list today is the Spy Eye. The Spy Eye is a secondary slot equipable for the Demo Man that replaces his dead eye with this kind of robotic one. This weapon allows him to see through the disguises of enemy spies, in exchange for essentially removing his secondary slot. Now, Spy of all classes does not need more counterplay, however this is just such a cool weapon idea, and I honestly think it will work on many classes. Looking once again on the item description, it does say all class secondary, however we are not rolling with that as Spy is the last class in need of a nerf. So for the sake of this video, this thing only works on Demo Man. It's funny to say that Demo Man is one of the classes who needs to spy check the least, as he's usually going to be blasting about and doing other things. However, giving this concept to Engineer would be far too strong, and giving this concept to Pyro would essentially be useless as he's already made for spy checking, so I don't really know who else you could give it to. So I think the Spy Eye is perfectly balanced and this should definitely be added to the game. The medical license is a strong contender in favour of net neutrality, as some people just shouldn't have the right to express their opinions on the internet. When equipped, the soldier has the passive of 5 health gained per second. And once the rage meter is full, you get an 80% speed increase and full crits for 8 seconds. This insane power comes at the cost of minus 20 health, rage taking longer to fill, and bleed damage vulnerability on the wearer. As I was saying, whoever conceived this on God's green earth as a balanced weapon idea should honestly not be on it. This is a cool idea for a weapon in the sense that you have less health as a soldier, but in exchange for a much stronger banner, this will push him into a really focused support role. However, getting your average soldier main to support and communicate with the team is essentially like getting your average bear to get on a unicycle. It's only doable if they're 14 and Russian. The medical license is probably the most absurd idea for an item I've ever seen in TF2, even out of the silly ones, and I really don't know how to feel about this one. But at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to pop it down in need of complete rework. It's a really cool idea, but I just don't think it could work as is. Next we have the Assault Cannon, and I had a brain hemorrhage just trying to understand how this thing works. The item description reads as follows, quote, "Secondary file deploys the barrel without firing." Huh? Fires 4 bullets per ammo used. Bullets are replaced with little plasma shots. Plus 25 health and overheal for every 100 damage dealt. This comes at the cost of a minus 25% slower weapon deploy time and minus 20% healing from all medics. So after smashing my head against the wall, I figured out this one is meant to be some sort of laser cannon, in which by right-clicking you can't rev up the gun, it will instead fire a huge amount of plasma balls. So essentially a hidden downside to this weapon would be that you can't rev up without firing, you can only rev up while firing with the left mouse button, and the right click will deploy some ammo in exchange for, some rockets. That alone seems like a very good idea for a minigun. That would be pretty difficult to balance, but I don't think this is the way to do it. I can't remember who made every single weapon on this list, that's why I haven't credited absolutely everyone when talking about the weapons, but I'll be sure to credit them at the end. And this time around, I have absolutely no clue what this one means. So, like I said, I think what the Assault Cannon is trying to do is to be like, essentially you can right click and it will fire a huge bunch of shots, but then again, I think this thing is another thing that needs complete reworking. This next one is one we theory crafted on stream together. This is the Demolition device. To sum it up in the simplest of words that I can, this is a secondary for the engineer that you actually equip to your main building. It can only be attached to one building at a time, and when that building is destroyed, this thing will explode, dealing 115 damage. This explosion has a pretty decent radius, and also sets off afterburn. This comes at the cost of this thing requiring 50 metal to set up and disappearing after 20 seconds. Now, like I said earlier, this is something me and a few viewers had theory crafted on a stream quite a while ago. And the engineer is desperately in need of more secondaries, as he only has 3. And this to me seems to be the perfect kind of one we can add. The engineer's secondaries are basically based around supporting the sentry gun, and this is another really good example of that. The demolition device could be attached to any building, but obviously your main priority would be attaching it to your sentry gun. It runs out after 20 seconds and you can't place another one while it's active, so it's perfectly balanced. But borderline, at the end of the day, I absolutely love this idea. This is my favourite one we've had so far. So I think the demolition device is perfect, honestly. The only change I would make is so that when it's currently deployed, you can't put down another one, no matter what. So it's essentially stuck with the building you're on. But I think this is a fantastic idea. I am going to put this in good. I think maybe it's a bit too strong. A good spy obviously can just stand away and shoot in a building. But I think this is pretty damn good. The next one we have here is called the American Spirit, and this is yet another banner for Soldier. The American Spirit has a nice passive of plus 10% movement speed bonus. Not the biggest thing in the world, but then again all passives are passive and they're all welcome. The banner activation for this thing is that you get a speed boost, damage resistance, and a damage bonus in exchange for a much smaller banner radius than others. And you only have to get 8 kills to deliver your rage. Now, that's maybe a bit of hit and miss, because with some banners you only need to deal 600 damage, and therefore it's always guaranteed 600. That could be multiple kills, that could be less kills, because there's only 2 heavies worth. However, with this thing you need to get a strict 8 kills, so if you're killing nothing but scouts, it's a buff, but if you're killing nothing but heavies, it's a nerf. This is a very unique downside to a banner that we haven't yet seen being explored. Now, in terms of how strong this thing would be, we really have to talk about how large this radius is. Because if this radius is quite literally you have to be touching the soldier, then it's, I think, fine. But if it's just maybe like 100 hammer units less, then it's still way too overpowered. So the American Spirit is essentially just taken to the extreme in terms of, banners. And I am going to put it in too strong. Regardless of a smaller radius or not, a payload or a capture point is wide enough as is. So therefore that's going into far too strong and essentially needs a complete rework. But not quite. The only other one we're going to cover today is the Frenchman sitting cushion. Now, I originally said we were going to be ranking these, however, as I'm making this video, we're now over 8 minutes, and this thing is honestly going to get to 10 minutes at this rate, and I really don't want it to be too long. So, I'll definitely split this into 2 parts. The Frenchman sitting cushion has the ability to where you cannot fully cloak, you are in the current buffering state that Spy gets when he bumps into someone, however you can still shoot your revolver at a slowered rate. You get extra cloak from boxes and you take less damage upon partial invisibility, however your cloak does drain at a much faster rate. I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't think constantly making spies to be invisible to get the buff while shooting, I don't think that's something that should be encouraged, as this would teach newer players the wrong way to play spy. Obviously there are many right and wrong ways to play different classes, and basically encouraging new players to hide whilst shooting to get kills is not a good idea. However, with some fine tweaking, this is an idea that could really set off. Everyone for the longest time has been thinking of maybe a revolver that allows you to shoot while invisible, however maybe it's got less ammo, maybe it deals a lot less damage or that kind of thing. But like I just said, I feel the revolver is the right way to go about this, not the invisibility watch. So this thing is a good concept, however I don't think it's a good concept for a watch. Therefore we're going to be putting it into the bit too weak category, as I'd much rather see this kind of thing on a revolver. And that's going to cover it for this video. I'm really sorry, I thought I could get through them all in this time, and I just couldn't. I'm not the fastest person in the world, I don't have very good timing, and my video lengths are often quite exemplary of that. Anyway, if this gets enough love, I'll definitely make a part 2, as I already have all the footage recorded and whatnot, but it's only just comes down to whether people would actually like to see it. If not, comment down below and tell me why you wouldn't like to see it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later down the sunny road. Cheers.